Well, Sky News host Liz Storer and contributor Jo Hildebrand join me now to discuss this. Welcome to you both.
Thanks,
hello.
Look, Jo, Penny Wong here. You never hear her criticise China.
Yes.
She has become internally, and I'm sure you're hearing this as well, the most influential voice on national security. And this is causing tensions, as we've spoken about, as now Christopher Dawes reporting. It's causing tensions between the government and the intel community.
Yeah, I think what this speaks to is a sort of cultural problem within the left of the Labor Party where they've never taken national security particularly seriously. They've often thought that it was all just a sort of, any concern about China was just a beat up of Sky News After Dark or the Right or the Murdoch Press or whatever it may be. And so, and again, there's also that tendency in the left, and this runs parallel to it, to be a kind of a party of protest and to be to rail against these sinister forces, be it again Murdoch, Sky, Dutton, whoever it might be. That is very different to the approach of the right of the Labor Party. In fact, it's almost a direct opposite. It's one of many, many differences. And Anthony Albanese, without a shadow of a doubt, is absolutely convinced that he is a centrist Prime Minister. He absolutely believes it. Yes, we all know that he's...
Everyone suffers from the occasional bit of self-delusion, but this is the major one.
We all know that he came from the left, but in a sense, he's sort of going on a journey. It's a journey that started many, many years ago when he positioned himself at the centre to sort of outflank Bill Shorten on the right, which is very, very weird for anyone who follows internal Labor politics. But that is exactly what he did. He was always more of a fixer than an ideological leftist. He was a party machine man who just fixed problems rather than someone who really, chained themselves to a tree over Palestine and whatever it is. And so, coming into the top job, the Prime Ministership, he's, as I've said before, looking at a lot of these issues really seriously for the first time. The problem is that the people he may or may not have surrounding him, or some of, and the background that he's come from,
given him the numbers to get
is
here.
Filled with people. Well, the right, he became the Prime Minister with numbers from the right and caucus as well as the left, but that those people still just don't take seriously things like, Hamas, China, Islamic terrorism.
And we're seeing that now. Liz, give me a Prime Minister who will hold a press conference with the flags behind them and show some leadership on national security.
Yeah, unfortunately not in Australia. For starters, they never fly the Australian flag behind them nowadays. It's all the Aboriginal flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag. But what reason could you possibly give not to take China seriously after they've just announced they're going to grow their military budget by 7.2%, totalling $235 billion just in this year alone? These guys are serious, so why aren't our leaders taking them seriously? It's harrowing. Also, regarding this report that, quite ridiculously, the Office of National Security had to drop everything to put together.
Yes, the climate change report.
Why the heck haven't we seen it? Obviously, the taxpayer dollar would have paid for this. It was finished in December 2022. Why haven't we seen it yet? We've heard all these boogeyman stories about it, but no one's actually come up with a redacted copy, if that's all you're going to let us be aware of.
I mean, what's it going to say anyway? Yes, there are climate change issues and we're going to see migration flow to Australia.
Well, I'd love to know what kind of fear porn they're peddling, because we're hearing stories of, no, we're talking about famines. We're talking about the conflicts that will take place over limited resources. We're talking about mass migration as a result of, these terrible climate change things that are going to happen. Well, show us the report then. We paid for it. If it was worth the Office of National Security dropping everything else to put this ridiculous thing together, show us what's in it.
Publish it, exactly.
What are you hiding?
Now, let's turn to the biggest scandal of the day. This has been like Watergate globally, making headlines every single news. Yeah, Watergate. Good call, Jo. Making headlines everywhere around the world. Global photo agencies have removed the first image of Princess Kate since her surgery over concerns that the picture has been doctored or digitally manipulated. There are 4 places where it appears to have been manipulated, according to the photo experts. This image was originally supplied by the royals themselves. They claimed it had been taken by Prince William.
You must be good at Photoshop.
Yeah. So, Jo, what has gone on here? And the whole point of this photo was to reassure the public that Kate's health was fine, but it's done the reverse now. Everyone's more worried than ever.
Yeah, well, it's good to know that Prince Andrew's PR team have found another job. That's first, whoever's idea this was. I've got a great idea. Yeah, we'll put this photo out. That'll show everyone. Is just an absolute knucklehead, and they should be on the pavement by the time of close of business at the end of the day. Firstly. It appears what they've done, or at least what I would have done. I used to be a bit of a Photoshop wizard myself back when I was a, young media dude. I photoshopped Jeff Kennett's face onto the body.
Oh, back when you were at the Daily Telegraph.
No, well, it was actually,
and everybody bought it.
Helping with the front pages.
Even before that was just sort of the fun part. But no, this is in the late 90s. I was editor of the Melbourne Uni Student newspaper, and we did a giant poster with Jeff Kennett's face on Michael Jackson's body, and you've got to be really careful about that stuff. So I had to bring all the ringlets forward, so it looked like,
nice.
It looked like, and Michael Jackson's there with a leather jacket with Jeff Kennett's face, and underneath it just had, "Who's bad?" Anyway,
but in this
point
instance...
being, so what it seems they have done, I mean, we don't have her hands don't have a wedding ring or an engagement ring on them. Why, if you're trying to send a message that everything's okay and she hasn't flown the coop, wouldn't you attend to that?
The question is it just a completely fake image?
Even people were saying even the tree in the background at this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, it is, of course, there shouldn't be any green leaves on the tree. So
that the question is why, if it is a completely false image, Liz, and there is no wedding ring, there's elements all in the picture which seem to be highly unusual. The question is, why would they do it? Why not just wait until she has recovered?
Yeah, and when you've got the resources of the royal family, you'd think if you were going to do a Photoshop job, you'd hire the best in the business. But the fact that it's not one glitch in this photo, it's several. Wasn't aware of the tree. Thanks, Joe, for adding that to the list. People can just tell
of this photo
something is definitely wrong with this photo, and rather than putting anyone's minds at ease, it is simply fueled some of the craziest conspiracy theories that you've ever heard about the royal family. So, unfortunately, it's backfired spectacularly.
Yeah. Well, the palace is going to have to respond. They haven't as yet, as we've gone to air tonight, but they will have to deal with this because it's been, like I said, the biggest scandal globally.
The good news is AI still can't fake things as well as
that is good to know.
Still got that on.
Yeah. All right, well, it looks like, back to UNRWA, it does look like Albanese is inclined to roll over and resume funding to UNRWA. This was the UN organisation where employees actually took part in the Hamas terror attacks. At this stage, Penny Wong's office hasn't confirmed that the funding will resume, but sources are telling other media outlets that there are moves behind the scenes to follow the lead of Canada and Sweden that have reinstated the funding. Joe, do they need to be careful about this?
They need to be extremely careful that they're not breaking their own laws, the anti-terror funding laws. So it is a law, and this is, anti-terrorism, counter-terrorism expert and international law expert Glenn Colomites, who is a friend of yours and mine, a very strong Labor supporter who also happens to be Jewish and finds himself often in conflict with many in the Labor Party, which is something that Jeremy Corbyn might have something to say about. But so he has made the point, and I wrote the story about it, that the government, in providing the funding to UNRWA in the first place, promising it, that is, that never actually changed hands, could be breaching its own terror funding laws, which says that not only can you not fund any terrorist organisation, but you cannot be reckless to the fact that funding you are giving to somebody is ending up in the hands of terrorists. Now, the red flag there was when the number of Jewish organisations raised with the government said, you can't give money to these guys. They just,
there's too much evidence.
They're infested with Hamas operatives, and it ends up with Hamas, these resources. And that was swept aside. But now, obviously, that it is known that a number of their employees were clearly working directly for Hamas and often at the front line. For the government to resume funding,
our money,
it would clearly be reckless unless the government had set up some form of amazing kind of oversight and checks and balances of UNRWA's operations to ensure that it's not ending up in terrorist hands. And how in hell do you do that when it's in a war zone that no one can get into on the other side of the world. So I don't know how. I imagine if they did do that.
I mean, you say, just to pull you up on that point about no money having changed hands, since October 7, the government's given something like $46 million to UNRWA. Just since October 7, going back to 2010, it's been $200 million that Australia has given to UNRWA. So I'm sure some of that $46 million
my understanding
has
is
gone
that
to
I think it was
UNRWA.
the 20 million that was announced, or a number of
in the third
several
tranche.
million that's right, the third tranche when Penny Wong went to the Middle East and met with various representatives, including the head of UNRWA, and made that latest funding commitment that came after she was warned about it being put into terrorist hands. So that would be where it would be reckless, where the government has been warned that this might be happening, but gave the money anyway. That money didn't end up
Just very quickly, Liz.
Well, how does this organisation even still exist at the moment? We know that the IDF has said they even found one of Hamas's tunnels underneath the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza. How much more proof do we need, besides the hundreds of UNRWA employees that were found to be complicit or directly involved with the massacres on October 7? Where does the UN get off still pretending like this is a legitimate organisation that countries should still be funneling?
Is the UN even saying that, or is this just Albanese and Penny Wong?
No, well, the UN does have the power to shut it down, obviously, because it is an arm of the UN. However, our guys still talking like this is a perfectly legitimate organisation that should have funding reinstated. Given what we know now, I'm sorry, at the time this came to light, we all scratched our heads and were like, do you mean to tell me that you were completely unaware of UNRWA's connections, shall we say, to questionable bodies prior to this? You have to believe that, no, they weren't that stupid. They did know. Now it's in black and white. It's in mainstream media. It's completely undeniable. And these guys are so dogged in their determination to send our money over there, they're going to do it regardless.
Yeah. You know what? If Penny Wong and Anthony Albanese seriously return funding, millions and millions and millions of dollars of funding to an organisation where employees took part in the Hamas terror attacks against Israel, they will never come back from that. Anyone who supports Israel or the Jewish community, that is a line in the sand. No one comes back from that.
Yeah, I think that, look, and again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about this kind of tunnel vision. Like, I know when I was writing the story about this, when it was sort of put to Penny Wong's office, which is populated by very nice, well-meaning people, that like the idea that UNRWA could in any way be compromised was like, what are you talking about? It's, you know, like it was, and again, and this doesn't come from a place of hatred. This comes from them wanting to do good things, and UNRWA really being the only agency that can actually deliver large-scale relief. So if you want to give any aid to Gaza,
the Red Cross.
The Red Cross is there, but it doesn't have the sheer breadth and scope that UNRWA does.
No, they can't reach into the tunnels.
And then, of course,
that's right.
Tunnels. And then, of course, as soon as that's compromised, and again, there's video circulating on social media of old lady, I don't know if it's verified or not, talking about just this, the aid that comes in, as a lot of people have been saying, and this seems to be someone on the ground verifying it, that as the aid comes in, it is just taken down into the tunnels. Hamas does just use it for itself. And in a way, that's what any government or authority at war that saw itself as at war would do. So it'd be almost
other
weirder.
Governments would be looking after their citizens, and this is why Palestinians would be better off without Hamas, because their conditions have been appalling.
Yeah, 1000%.
All right, we're out of time. Liz Storer, Joe Hildebrand, thank you both so much.